I'm Crishantha, as I said. So today, actually, my agenda is to give you some briefing about System Manager and some capabilities in the Systems Manager. And why I chose this topic, actually, it's mainly because it's something which I got to know recently, and not recently, some months ago. And I thought, okay, it was not discussed in the forum, so I thought, okay, this is a good topic to talk, but it's not very technical. It's basically how to handle the tool and all. Just it's more or less a sysops DevOps site, actually. If you are nowadays, actually, we can't just confine to only to programming. We need to understand what DevOps and sysops and all that. You might need a little bit of Linux or whatever knowledge required. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward session, actually. It's not going to be very technical. But I'm sure you might learn a few things. But as I was listening to Dawaz and his inspirational story, but if you do a DevOps or sysops exams, I think probably your professional exam, you might see this topic everywhere. So it might help you in that way as well. So let's see how I can do this presentation, right? So let's go to the, I won't take that long. I think probably half an hour I can finish it off, right? And it's an overview, right? And just actually what System Manager, but it is not a new service as such. It has been there for a few years now. Earlier it was named as Simple Systems Manager. Now then it became EC2 Systems Manager. Now it's called as Systems Manager. And as you can see, I mean, if you go to AWS console, I mean, recently they have done major revamp for the UI. I mean, sometimes you can't find where the services are. It's every day it's evolving. It's a good thing, but for us it's not a good thing, because it's very difficult for us to find content sometimes. And not only that, knowledge sometimes, all set of videos are being obsolete. So it's pretty, you must have experienced the UI is getting changed. So even Systems Manager, UIs has got changed a lot. And that's why if you go to this agenda, I mean, there are quite a few new services, not a few services, new capabilities added to that. So like Distributor, OPSCENTER, Explorer, and they were new things, actually. And others are pretty straightforward. And so it's actually, if I summarize what the Systems Manager is all about, it's a dashboard. It's actually a single window dashboard to monitor all the operational activities in your environment. Why would I say operational activities? Like if you say that we are very much hooked on to serverless and managed services these days, but we started in VMs, actually. So, but still we use VMs for certain applications to set up our own environment, because we have the control, we have the servers, we just have to manage it. But if you have hundreds of servers to manage, it's pretty difficult to manage. That's why, I mean, usually in a project, we probably have 5 to 10 EC2s maximum in a small project. But if it's a big project, probably have 100 of EC2s, because there will be clusters, there will be multiple clusters, and there can be hybrid connections to other on-premises. So likewise, it's not going to be easy to govern all EC2s together, because there are multiple operating systems, there are patches coming in. So the system admin will have to be, I mean, you have to be always at it to, find what the issues are, and what are you have to be responsible for what the system has, especially in the security side. And so that's why the System Manager comes into the picture, because it's a single window dashboard, actually, which once you go there, I'll show you that. And once you go there, you can just control most of the things. It's not having everything so far, but most of them are covered, actually, right? So that's a little bit of what System Manager is all about, right? And within my presentation, I will not have a separate demo. I'll just jump into the console and explain a few things. And so with the systems manager, as I shown here, you can do wide interface wide patching. You can get insights. You can get defect infrastructure problems, and you can manage Linux and Windows both together. And so most of the servers are on Linux, but there are multiple Windows servers as well. It's a hybrid thing, so you can manage both, and it supports both. And it well integrates with CloudWatch and EventBridge as well, as I said, and CloudTrail and config also. And main thing is free. And so I wouldn't say it's 100% free, because the core is free, but the only thing is if you connect to config, it will not be free. So config is somewhat expensive compared to other services. So, but it's eventually it's a free service. So you can try it out if you haven't tried it out, right? And if somebody asks what are the alternatives, Oxwork is kind of an alternative, because if you are a chef or puppet person, I think you can do the same thing in a more I would say if you like to code, you can do such way. But I mean, it does the same thing, but only difference is the system manager has more features. Like they are trying to put everything into that basket now. So eventually it will evolve, and it will be a complete dashboard. So, so as I said, it will apply regular patches, automated processes, share environment variables, maintain state, maintain the packages installed, and those are the key things it does. So this is the main diagram you need to understand. It's very simple diagrams, nothing fancy about it. The only thing is you can see the on-premise service you can connect. As you know, since you are all AWS based, you can use VPN or direct connect to on-premise service. I'm not going to connect any of them here because it's not possible for me to do that here. But the thing is, with SSM you can do that, and in addition to that, you can, as I said, within the box you can see Linux, Mason Linux, Ubuntu, CentOS, multiple operating systems are there. You can manage everything together. There are hundreds you can manage, and along with on-premise service. So it's like a platform to manage a complete hybrid solution. And so that's what it's all about. It's pretty simple, and it's nicely abstracted to this level. And okay, now let's talk about a little bit of system manager now. That was the overview actually. So if I talk about system manager capabilities, so there are quite a few components. These are not called components; they're called capabilities. And what is capable of? Actually, I would say it's not my diagram; it's a screenshot which I took. There are additional stuff as well now. So if you go to the console, you can see some additional stuff which is not here. So so that's why this is actually a diagram which was taken very recently, but still it's been updated now. So it has automation. There's a thing called documents, patch manager, parameter store, OPSCENTER, inventory, maintenance window, state manager, run command. There's one more, and distributor. There are some more as well. So I'm not going to very detailed, just give you an understanding. But I'll show you certain things, how to do and all stuff. But I'll just give you a concept, basic concept, and you can always go and study more actually. But if you are studying, so since this, even last session we're talking about certification, if you are studying for a DevOps or SysOps, I think this session is more than enough for that. So, but we are not studying only for certificate. We have to work. So that's the main thing. So when you are working, I think we should understand almost everything to know what it basically can do, right? So I'll just jump into the console, then it's easy for me. I will not have a separate demo as such. Hope you can see the screen. Ramesh Manoj, can you?
Yes, we can see.
All right. Okay. So system manager is just if you type system manager here, but it's there's a URL. I'll just click here, and it goes here, right? So you can see the left menu. I in fact showed you there are multiple capabilities in my slide deck. You can see everything here, right? You can see on top Explorer, OPSCENTER, dashboard is a link. There's a health dashboard. And these two are links. It's not part of actually systems manager. In addition to that, is an app config, which is again a link, and the resource groups, parameter. These are components. And automation is a part of a component, and maintenance window is just the scheduling part. Compliance, inventory, manage instances, hybrid activation, session manager, run command, state manager, patch manager, distributor, and documents, right? And these are actually, don't get too much worry about these. All are very simple. Only thing, all look the same, but there is subtle difference. Only thing you need to understand what's the difference, that's all. And so what I can say is, so I'll go back to the slide deck again. So documents, actually, you all know about CloudFormation, right? CloudFormation is all about templates. So if you talk about systems manager, it's all about documents. It can be a JSON or YAML written documents. There are predefined documents already, just like in CloudFormation, you find predefined documents in SSMN as well. I'll show you everything. And a good thing about SSM is it's a version, and it's the tag based. You can tag and choose to do anything. And so I'll again go back to the screen, and you can see the documents at the bottom, and this is the main part actually. If first, when you're starting SSM, I think first you have to start with documents. So you can see the screen, and then there are multiple pages. You can see all predefined templates, right? And so if you want, you can create your own document using this tab, right? And all your own created customized are going under this, right? And but these are, you can run this, or you can create one like this and run this as well. So that is a different, and you can share, you can share as well with others. But I'll consider only these two at the moment. So you can search and find, okay, what document I need to execute and all that. For example, I'll go to this very simple one, which I created actually. It's actually to install Apache on your EC2. So it's a YAML document. So this was not there in the predefined, so you can create your own one. And I'll run this later. And that's about documents. It's actually, if you want to do a task in SSM, you need to run documents. Just like CloudFormation, you run templates. You can create templates. You can run predefined ones, and this can do it with documents. That's different. So for start, you had to always start with documents. So that's about it, right? And so when it comes to documents, there are multiple document types: command document, policy document, automation document, and package document. We start with a very simple one, which is the command document, right? The command document is just execution. It's a simple execution. You can write a command, execute something. Command can be a huge YAML, but it's still a command, right? But it's a command document can be a run command, or it can be state manager. Those are the subtle differences. So probably when you start learning SSM, probably you might mix it what state manager does, what run command does. But only thing is run command is one time. That's the thing you have to remember, right? Run command is one time. State manager is not one time. It can be one time, but you can schedule it. You can attach that particular state to a particular instance. For example, if you want to run antivirus software every day, you can schedule it. That's called a state manager association. Those are called associations. Don't worry about these words, and so if you want to run a one-off thing, so you always use the run command, right? But if you want to schedule something and attach to the instance, use the state manager. That's the difference. But both look the same. All are running documents underneath, or everything is running documents underneath. So So main components documents, and only differences, subtle differences with scheduling and all this stuff, right? And just get the concept. Don't worry too much about these theory parts. Just understand what it is, right? And policy, as you know, you can create policies for instances. Automation is like, you can have like in lambdas you find step functions, right? Similar to that, just you can have automation workflow in SSM as well. So if you want to have an automation workflow, use automation document. Package document is something similar to, like, if you want to, you know about Docker, right? Something similar to that. You just package it and put it to S3, and from S3 you deploy it into all. So probably you have a, say, if you want to install PowerShell, right, in Windows. So move it, create a package, a PowerShell package, and move it to S3, and from S3 you just install it in all Windows servers. Rather than going one by one installing, you can just write a command and install everywhere. So it will be scheduled, it will be run on the background. So likewise, you can do so many administrative work with this. By the end of the day, everything is a document, right? That's part you have to understand. And so right. So I talk about the main concepts. Then I talked about documents. Now I'm going to talk about another important called managed instance. So what is a managed instance? Managed instance, you know what's a managed services? Managed services, usually everything's done for you except for your few configurations. So likewise, before you attach SSM to a particular instance, it was not a managed service. When you are running SSM in a EC2, for example, EC2 system, EC2 instance, it's called a managed system. So once you convert a normal EC2 to a SSM running instance, it's called a managed instance. That's why whenever I say it's a managed instance, it means SSM enabled. By default, it's not enabled, right? You have to make it enabled, right? How do you do that? You have to install an agent. First part, you have to install agent, and then, as usual, you need to create a role for that, right? And because you need to communicate with other services, right? So installing agent is actually the same diagram is like subtle difference here. Just want to make sure the flow, and only difference is you find agents. So you can say in the previous diagram I didn't have agents. Now in this diagram I have agents, but they're in two colors. Why there are two colors? For example, this leftmost stuff are having blue color, others are having sort of a reddish color. So why this blue is because by default MSL Linux 2 and Ubuntu is pre-installed with SSM agents. So if you are using either of these distributions, you don't need to install SSM agents. But if you are having any other distribution like CentOS or Windows or whatever it is, Red Hat or whatever it is, you need to install the SSM. You just go to the documentation, you can find the links to do that. So once you do the SSM agent installation, you just have to add a role to that, right? System role. And as I said, this is what I explained now. And these are, I mean, you can see this is from the documentation, AWS, MSN Linux, MSN Linux 2, MNSLU to ECS, Optimize AMIs, and Ubuntu. These are the only ones which are coming with pre-installed agents. And so I'll just again go back, and that will be easy for you to understand. And so this is, so if I go back to EC2 first, right? So I have created a few instances here, and you can see there are 3 Mason Linux ones and 1 Ubuntu one and 1 NetGet one, right? Actually, this some I have actually installed. These are having SSM agent because there's a MSL Linux, even this one, but this doesn't have, right? And only thing is, I have, as I said in the previous diagram, you can connect to on-premise servers. So I am simulating, sort of assuming that I'm having on-premise server here, which is the Red Hat one. Others are all AWS, as you know. So if that, I mean, you can simulate certain things, right? But it's not the real thing because I don't have any external links to connect to any on-premise server. But I'm assuming Red Hat is the on-premise server. So, but at the moment, I have connected only the first three with the role, right? If you go there, you can find these three are having SSM role, but not this one, right? So, so if you go to SSM console now, you can see only three, I think, as far as I know. This before I came to this demo, I just set it up like that. If you go to these manage instances mean SSM enabled instances, right? So it should be three, yeah. So all five are not there because I have enabled the role only for these three, right? So what I can do is I'll just want to show, but it will take a bit of time. That's the thing, and sometimes you have to reboot the instance because it's not consistent sometimes, right? But what I'm going to do is just go to the Ubuntu instance and assign the role into that, right? You can assign the role from here. These are pretty basic stuff, but you need to do that. And yeah, this is the role which I created for this, and I just save it, right? And on the fly it will happen, but sometimes you have to reboot, sometimes you don't have to reboot. I don't know why. Probably it doesn't identify the session connection. So to be on the safe side, I'll reboot. Otherwise, it will take a long time, probably, right? And yeah. So it will take probably 2 to 3 minutes to show up there. So we'll go back to system manager. It will come, don't worry. And so that's about having managed instance. So whatever you do in SSM, you have to do for the managed instance because you need to enable SSM. That's still it's not come, right? It will come probably in 1 or 2 minutes time. And so I'll go back here again. So that's about how you make everything SSM enabled. You install agent plus create a role for that. That's all. And resource groups, actually, it's creating, you know about resource groups. Everyone, if you know AWS, you know about resource groups, right? And uh, probably you found resource group somewhere here in the previous console. Now it's not there. So, but you have the luxury to create resource groups here, you know. And so that's I'm saying things are changing, right? And yeah, you can create resource groups. I already created. I don't want to waste my time here. So resource group is just a group based on the tags that you have, right? And I have created a dev and QA. QA has 2 instances, dev has 3 instances. And so resource group is matter of you just can create groups. You know about it, right? And I don't want to explain that. And so based on the tags, you can create your resource group, right? So I'll go back to the, and so this is what I explained. You need to create a role. You need to register with SSM. I've explained everything up to now, right? So this is the hybrid activation, right? What I said is in SSM, you need to should be able to activate on-premise servers as well. Only difference is here you don't create you don't assign the role to this, right? You need to install the SSM agent, but you don't need to assign that particular role which I did because this is not in AWS. This is, we are assuming it's outside. But only thing is you need to execute, there's a thing called it's a command. If you see, this is how you install the agent first, then there's a thing called activation code, right? This is the activation code that you get from the on-premise side. You add it to the console, then it will connect to the on-premise side. That is the trick here. I can showcase it with what it will take like time. I'll explain it. But just remember, I'll show it here. And well, let's do it, system manager. And there's a thing called activation, hybrid activation. So you go here and create an activation. This is to get in a hybrid connection. And let's do it and see. Yeah, you don't. You can create a role if you want, but just leave it as it is. Or let the system create a role for me, right? That will make life easier for me at the moment. So when you create activation, what happens is it will give you activation code and activation ID. So what you have to do is you just have to go to that instance, read that instance, and insert these two to this command. These here, these two placeholders, you create it and you restart it. What will happen is it's automatically that instance get added to the manage as a managed instance. That's all you have to do. I can do this. The thing is, let's see how it goes. All I have to do is based on the time. If I have time, I'll explain. Otherwise, it will take some time. Right? Let me do it first. Okay, that's easier. And so this is exactly the Red Hat instance. I just connect, and what I have to do is I have to type few commands. Hope it is okay. I have typed everything, just matter of copying it. So only thing is I have to insert these two. It's done, and activation ID and the region, that's all. I'm using North Virginia, so it's US East one. Oh. No, sorry, this is the same thing which I typed. All right.
Small interruption, Crishantha.
Yeah.
It seems half of your screen is frozen. I think half of your screen still shows us the slide in the terminal. Not sure as to why.
Can you see the screen?
Now the slides. Now we can see the slides.
Yeah, now we can see. Yeah, when you share the other code, terminal, then it's only half.
All
okay,
right.
now we can see.
And now we can see.
Still, I think address bar is kind of interrupting that.
Anyway, I'll be completing this. So it won't take that long. So can you
sure.
can you see now?
Yeah, now we can see.
Now we can see. Yeah.
All right. Just a few lines. So that's it. That's about that. It should now actually it should appear on the system system manager. Can you see the screen? The screen actually. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
We can see. I'm done with the console, so it's okay. And so when you come here, it will actually, yeah, all five are there now. Yeah, and this is actually I'm simulating the on-premise, right? And even the previous one is Ubuntu one is here because it takes a bit of time, but this has straight away come because it's quite fast actually. So it says Red Hat, 2 Amazon, 3 Amazon, and then 1 Ubuntu, right? So I have 5, and this is on-premise one, which is the blank one, right? Yeah, it's all good now. So I can continue with my presentation. And so far I have done I've talked about documents. I talked about manage instance, how you install agents, and how you create roles, and now activations as well. So now it's pretty straightforward once. The hard part is done. Actually, it's not hard, but that is the only hard part in terms of setting up. Now your system manager is set up for your requirement. All your instances, all your EC2 instances have been converted as managed instance, including the hybrid one. And so that's a good thing. Now you have to execute your whatever the use cases. So first use case is basically the run command, which is, as I said, run command is a single execution. And it just, if you want to execute something, just one off. For example, if you want to install Apache in all 100 instances, you just run this command, it will install in all 100 machines in the background, right? You don't have to worry about, you don't have to wait, and but you have to give few settings like, okay, you have to do one by one, or at least you do 10 at a time or something. That's all you have to do. You just set it up, it will run everything. So before SSM, I think, I don't know, only probably Observe could do it. Other than that, we didn't have 100 instances in any of our projects. But if you come across any large project, I think this is a good way of handling installation, patching. I'll come to the patching later. But this is run command is all about executing commands. Like you can, as I said, you go to the command documents page, you execute existing predefined ones, plus your own created commands, right? You don't have to worry about SSH or RDP. Just you can put while you're doing it, you can redirect your output to S3 or SNSO, so you can trigger, for example, once you finish, you can trigger. And concurrency means how many instances you should run the command. Those are parameters, right? At a given time. Those actually, you don't have to worry about these parameters. Those are default functions you will work, but if you want to make it faster, you can do certain optimizations. Error threshold is how many individual commands running on individual instances can be fall before the whole command fails. Those are setups. And as we had the event bridge presentation before with Dawal, I think Dawal said event bridge is all about cloud events, the next extension with a new hub. It's fine. But the event bridge is one main source that you can set events to SSM at the moment, plus CloudWatch events, both are same. I'll show you how to do that. And once you can trigger events from there and you can execute certain things here. And even run command you can execute. And yes, this is a diagram for that. You can use a CLI or web console to execute run command, or you can use mainly event bridge or CloudWatch events to do that. And basically, once you execute the run command, you just execute everything in all your managed instances in the background. Like probably 100, probably 200, probably in the hybrid, on-premise servers, everywhere, right? So that's a pretty quick solution as far as I see it. It's pretty amazing to do such things. But yeah, and so as I said, I have a few demos, but those are not demos. Those are commands. Just click that's done, right? There's no programming as such. And I'll just show you a few things in this. Not much. If you take this MSN2, I have installed Apache in that before I can. Just want to show you something, right? And I'll go back to EC2 again. And so MSN2, which is, I think I've installed Apache there. I just type this IP and you will see that Apache is yeah, it's installed, right? But if you type the other ones, you don't see it. So I type about these public IPs and all. So you need to explain. Everything is in the public subnet, so it's easy for you. Nothing fancy about it. Just there's nothing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install Apache here and here. And yeah, first and second, you can see it's easy, pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward execution. Go back to SSM again, and so what I go to documents, and this is how we do it. To install Apache, I have created a document owned by me, and this is that. We just run it, run the command, and you will have it, right? And this is the document which I'm focusing on, and default, yeah, and I'll choose manually. I don't want to use tags because it will complicate things now. And so 1 and 3, right? I don't want to execute it to Ubuntu because those are not Ubuntu commands. It will fail. You can execute it, but it will fail because the script is only for Amazon, right? Because it's Amazon is a Red Hat version, so it's a Red Hat command. So Ubuntu has different stuff, and I don't want to do all this. Just run it. It will run in the background, and you can do it for 100 instances if you want. Just matter to create a group and click it. That's it, and it will done. After a few minutes, it will come, and it will take probably 2 minutes. So I'll go back to my presentation, and so that's about that. Run command is all that. So next one is patch. I'll just wait for this. What will happen is once it finishes, you go and see whether you can run the same. Just click the IP and say whether you can run it. It will come. It's nothing fancy about it, right? So I'll go to the patch manager now, right? Which basically what patch manager does is, as you know that when you have multiple instances, it's what you get in the AMIs usually is probably some old version of your OS, right? So what we usually do in projects is we just get an AMI and do whatever the installation, then we forget about it. We hardly sometimes, but it's not practical in production environment. You have to be mindful about patches, especially about security patches and all that. And sometimes if you take Linux and Linux repos are getting changed, sometimes if you don't update, things will break for sure, then you can't track anything. So what you have to do is always you need to patch. And but that, I think this is a very good thing. Because this has the capability, because it is a all our managed instance. Just give a scheduled command to patch default patch for each what do you call each distribution. For example, this is a process, right? And you have SSM here. You define the patch baseline. That baseline is every distribution has a baseline. For Linux, Amazon Linux has a baseline. Ubuntu has a baseline, likewise Windows has a baseline, and every time you don't have to do anything. The AWS makes sure that all these baselines are up to date, and so what you have to do is you just make sure these baselines are executed on a regular basis. That's all the SSM does. We don't have to worry about getting patches or anything. It's just if you have any external patches repos, you can point it out, but I don't want to explain that here, but that extension is there, that provision is there, but the only thing is you don't have to worry about if you are getting default baselines, you don't have to worry about patching. We just, not patching, but worry about repositories. It will make sure the real patch is there all the time, but you have to make sure you are updating the patches based on those default defined patch baselines, that's all. And then you create a maintenance window, so you schedule it basically, then you run the command, patch command, and it will be done. So it's whatever the defined patch, actually if you select Amazon Linux patch for that particular instance, it will patch. So like that, it will do the filtering and patches. So finally, once the patches are done, it will automatically forward it to inventory. Inventory makes sure that it's all patches are nicely compliant. Sometimes patches can break. So in this compliance section will make sure your patches are nicely up to date or not. If otherwise, it will give errors, right? You can see, go to the inventory and see what are the errors. So this is the patching process, basically. You need to have a defined patch, baseline patch for each distribution. Then you point to whatever the instances you want to update. group it and update. That's it. Very simple, nothing fancy. And only thing is you need to be mindful about these patches. For example, each distribution has its own patch. Amazon Linux 2 is the AWS Linux version, which has its own patch. Ubuntu default patch is there. It has all versions. And for Windows also, I think there are two patches, predefined default patch baseline and the predefined. There's not much of a difference between default patch baseline and the predefined default patch baseline. I'm not too sure why there are two. The document says the same, both are same. But I think it's better to take the second one, right? And third one is for if you have Windows plus any OS application, Microsoft applications, I think there's a separate patch for that. And so, like, I mean, you have to pick these default patches and update, and that's it. And I have a maintenance change or run command compliance check, right? So I'll just do a small patching. I'm not going to worry about it. So we'll see whether this is completed. Yeah, all are completed. Now, if you go back to this thing, I think you can run it. I'm not going to do it. You can try it at home. It should work, right? And go over the batch manager now, right? What patch manager does is it's patching, nothing else. These are the patch baselines I talked to. And what you have to do is, if you don't have a patch baseline that you want, you can create your patch baseline, right? And so first thing is you have to configure patching. What you have to say is, you can select instance manually. For example, I don't want to go to the groups again. I can't remember that, but I'll patch this one randomly. I take it, right? And so once you select this one, it automatically select the default baseline. You don't have to do it, right? So you just only have to pick the particular instance, right? And so you find this is called maintenance window. Is you schedule it, but I don't want to do it here. I just skip it and scan and install. You can either scan only, you can scan and install, but sometimes you don't want to install before scanning. You just execute scan. I don't care, right? And so it will happen, right? It's background. It's successfully configured to the view details. You just go there. You can see it's going on and it's in progress. So that's patching is all about. You can select probably hundreds of instances and see whether it's been patched, right? And that's about that. And state manager, right? So what is state manager is, I said that's a subtle difference between a run command and a state manager. Run command is just a single execution, but state manager, it can be a scheduled one. By default, it's a scheduled one, but it can be single execution as well. And only thing is, you need to be, these are not that important, but better to understand this stuff. Sometimes you might get confused because there are things called state manager, session manager, so many managers. So it's better to understand this stuff. So what it says is when you create a state for a particular instance, it creates an association. These are the things you need to remember. When you create a state for a particular instance, it's called a state manager, state association rather, right? You create association, just try test association or something. And let's say you want to try out like install Docker or something. So there's an example which I gave. Configure Docker, right? Yeah, I can take this. These are again a command. These are called in a run command documents, but this is for state. And so just simulation, nothing else. And you can choose instances manually. I choose this one. Yeah, again, and run it here. I can't remember which I did. I think I'll take this one. and MSN3, and schedule is no schedule. I don't want to schedule it. What about it? Great association, right? So it's in progress. You can see. Once you do that, I mean, you can try it out at home. I think once it finishes, you go to the instance, say the Docker is installed. I think it's pretty fast. I think than going and installing. I mean, you can do, if you want to install Docker in 100 instances, just click that document and click it. That's it. Your Docker is there. You can go and see. But I don't want to do it here because it will take some time, right? And that is that. And state manager is all about keeping a state. Usually it's a schedule thing. I mean, this is not an ideal example. Docker is not a recurring thing, but it's actually a state is always about recurring. You always, like antivirus or whatever it is, you schedule it for this date and go to. You have a state for that instance. State means you keep a document state at a particular time. That's it. And yeah, the state manager is running. I already told you what's the difference. So inventory is basically, I just rush through the rest of it, and simply because time is a matter. And so inventory is basically you can collect metadata from instances, and you can forward it to S3. Then after S3, you can put it to Athena or QuickSight or whatever the visualization. So inventory is at a particular time your metadata repository, basically, for instance. You can watch that. You can do queries and see what it is. That's all about that. I don't want to do a practical on that. You can try it out. Session manager is pretty straightforward again. Probably would have earned this. As you know, when you want to work with EC2 instances, you have to SSH to those EC2 instances. And it's only problem. It's, for me, it's pretty okay because I'm quite okay with the command line. But only issue is, only thing is, once you have to share your keys sometimes, you know, sometimes you might share with multiple people. It's not safe. So the sharing keys are not a good thing, especially when you're connecting to EC2 instance. You have the private key. With your private keys, the only key you have, right? So if you share with multiple people, it can be a problem in a production setup. So only what for testing out, it's okay, but in the production, it can be an issue. So session manager, what it does is you don't need anything. Just go to session manager, click the instance, you have a shell in the new, right? You probably would have seen this before, and I'll go and see. It doesn't take 2 minutes. So go to session manager, and you start a session. So go here, I'll take this one, Ubuntu. I never tried anything out of it. Start a session, and that's it. You just go to your console. So if you hadn't, I'm sure you have seen this because you can see it. Yeah, so you are in the console. I mean, you don't do any SSH. It's good actually. You don't even. Sometimes when you go to private instances, you have to go through Bastion nodes. You don't need it. I mean, this will make sure that you will be through even to the private subnets. You don't have to go to a Jambox or anything like that. I mean, you don't have to worry about port openings or private keys or anything. You are in Ubuntu now, actually. So you can see you are in Ubuntu, right? So I'll go back. This is it. I mean, you can do whatever installation you want, but I'm not a fan of this because I can't see it properly from the first place. But well, it's a secure way of doing it. But yeah, that is session manager. The parameter store, the other thing, is a pretty easy concept. I don't know whether you are using this, especially when you are using CloudFormation or any other template. Where usually when you have parameters like AMI IDs or anything like that, you can keep all that in a parameters too, right? You can refer from CloudFormation to SSMU. It's pretty direct because everything is in AWS, so connection is always there. And so the best thing is parameter store will store your parameters like DB strings, passwords, and parameter. Well, by default it's a non-encrypted string, but it has the encrypted version as well. So you can store passwords, user IDs, DB strings. It can store up to, I think, thousands of strings without any charge. That's a good thing about parameters too, right? But there's another thing called secret manager. Go through the same thing. Only thing, secret manager is more secure. It's because by default it's secure. It's if you are using passwords in your whatever scripts, better use secret manager because it's by default it's secure. But the only hitch is that it's charged $40.4 every secret for a month. But if you take parameter store, you can store up to 10,000 parameters for a free of charge. So it's up to you to decide. If you have more money, you can use that. But what they say is if you have a lot of strings, use parameters. But if you are more worried about security, but both use KMS, both have it. The only thing is there are a few subtle differences, like built-in password generator is not there in parameters too. Automated secret rotation is not there. Cross-account access not there. So if you don't use that, I think you can go with parameters too. If you want these features, plus if you are worried too much about security, you just go to secret manager, right? So last few slides actually, automation is, I'm not going to have practical on that because it's impossible to have practical on this because it's a long process. I tried to include it, but I thought, okay, it will take more time, so I didn't do it. Automation is, as I said, it's the workflow, right? Is a good example is creating a golden AMI, right? Golden AMI is having patched AMI. That is a process, right? Workflow. You can't do it within a single command. So it's a workflow. So if you want to have a workflow in SSM, try automation, right? I'm not going to do it here because it takes time, right? And the distributor is the other thing. Is I think I explained. It's package. You can create packages, and a bit similar to Docker. The concept is that you just put it to S3, and from S3 pulled out and install it to other places, right? And so the last one, which is OPSCENTER and Explorer. And this is I think this is a new feature. I didn't see it some time ago, actually. This is very interesting, not interesting, but yeah, it's actually you're going towards what you call single window dashboard, right? So if you go to OPSCENTER is all about, so I have 5 instances. It will give you, okay, any issues in that, right? I don't know whether you heard about Security Hub. I mean, a few years ago, there's a service called Security Hub. Now it's not there actually because some vendors don't support it. Security Hub had a similar thing for security. What Security Hub does is, probably you know what I'm talking about. What Security Hub does is it amalgamate all the security, like Inspector, Trust Advisor, and there are 40 other CS benchmarks, and they collect everything and go through config and have a nice dashboard, and it always evaluates whether you are hitting 80% of your security. It gives you a rating, right? Something like that. And I mean, this one, SSM, what it does is if you have hundreds of servers, you make sure your servers are well patched, well maintained, no security issues, nothing like that. If issues are there, let's say the system goes down. I mean, one of your EC2s goes down. What happens is you say, okay, you have an open issue here. You can go and check. Okay, if you go to the dashboard and say, okay, and you can go and check. I'll try and show you this. The last demo, right? It says, I'll go to website items and see config resources. And I don't know if they work. I'll try. Sometimes these are buggy actually. And we see how it goes. And actually, this CloudWatch events is similar to Event Bridge, what Dawal was talking about. You can create cases, rules rather. And if you go to events, you have rules. And once you confirm, actually in my console, I have set up the OPSCENTER. So once you set up the OPSCENTER from SSM, it goes and creates set of rules in CloudWatch event. These are the rules. I have not created. These are pretty standard rules, but I have created one here which just to simulate thing. Which is not a standard rule actually, just to show you whether this works or not. It says if I stop an instance, stop, or it's getting stopped, or for some reason you got stopped, you've been invoke event to SSM, right? It does a script here, and you execute this script, you do it. What you have to do is, so the script is there. Once system EC2 instance is down, it will trigger SSM, because you trigger everything. You mentioned you want to trigger SSM here. In addition to trigger SSM, you can add SNS or whatever triggers to, you can get SMS or whatever. That's also there. But you can trigger in event to SSM also, because that is your main dashboard. So you can use it as a best practice, right? So if something goes wrong, you always update SSM. That's why that once you confirm SSM there, OPSCENTER, if you go and does it automatically. So what I have to do is I just go and down one EC2 instance and see whether that works or not, right? Hopefully it will work. Not sure though. We'll see. It won't take more than few minutes, few seconds. So don't worry. And so I'll shut this down, right? Stop. Yeah, I'll stop this. So I'll go back to system manager and see what will happen. Still not there. It will come, I think. Yeah. Once it actually, what happens is once it's completely shut down, it will say you have one open case here. Should come. We'll see. Yeah, it has come, right? And so you can click that and see what's the issues, right? The beauty of this is once you do this, you can see this. Everything is connected to this. You have your EC2 instance. You can see the CloudTrail. You can see the CloudWatch event set. You can see the config. You can keep on going in this, right? And then you can visualize where the problem is. Everything logs are there. Everything is there. So that's the beauty of SSM, because they've tried to put everything together, and rather than going all over the place to find an issue, just put everything together. If something goes wrong, you just can find it out here, and that's what it does. So whatever. It's another thing is I don't want to go into detail, but Explorer is actually a collection of all that, right? And so you can see how many managed instances are there, and basically it's a dashboard about what your environment, right? So you can see this one issue is there. You can see no critical, nothing. So it's basically a high-level dashboard about everything, right? I'll just go and see again. Here you can see this is the problematic instance. You can see the CloudWatch matrix. You can, from here, you can find what the issue is. Now it's stopped, I know, but you can see, okay, what if there are any issues, any configuration issues, whatever it is, and the CloudTrail logs if you want to check. And likewise, you have all the things that you want for a troubleshoot. So that's basically it. Actually, those are the references. If you have questions, you can ask. Thank you.